Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and I've been reading a little bit tonight, this evening, whatever, in the Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. And I just the reason why I have these books is it just kind of reminds me of some of the things that I don't know that I talk about with people whenever we get into these discussions about the about how just the material how the material world is just not very it's well if it were such a material world, then things like this couldn't happen, right? Like, for example, I talk about the placebo effect a lot, and I also talk about the Mandela effect. It's just the Mandela effect, the placebo effect, all these things like that, they just, well, I'm looking and seeing what's like, I'm like, what have I got going on back here? Anyway, but the placebo effect and the Mandela effect, things like that, could not happen in a hard physical world. In a world that is just strictly material, it's what it is. Things are made out of this, and they're made out of that, and that's it. And you can't change it. Once it's set, right? Set in stone, as they say, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but then you read reports of things that have happened throughout history. I talk about the Mandela, like I said, the Mandela effect things, but I also talk a lot about the buildings, right? I talk about all these amazing structures, right? These what are these cathedrals, these courthouses, just all kinds of amazing structures that it's like there's no way they were built by the ancestors that we're told they were built by. We're told these people didn't have power tools. We're told they didn't have power equipment. We're told they didn't have anything, but yet they built these amazing structures rather quickly. Also, in a lot of cases, they'll say like this courthouse was founded in 1850 or whatever, and they'll be like, yeah, it was built in 18 months or something like that. And it's like, really? That courthouse was built in 18 months? And you don't even have like you don't even have a Dremel so that you can be carving out these beautiful decor. And I'm not even that's just a decor. How they were to hoist these enormous slabs of granite and or marble is just it boggles the mind. It really does. But anyway, getting back to this Charles Fort's Book of the Damned, dear loved one. Oh shit, I think I just lost my place. Well, whatever, it's okay. So I was reading about how there's these fish that just fell from the sky. And I know there's hear me out here. Let's just listen to this. In the London Times, March 10th, 1859, Vicar Griffith writes an account. The roofs of some houses were covered with them. In this letter, it said that the largest fishes were 5 inches long and that these did not survive the fall. Report of the British Association, 1859 to 1859 158. The evidence of the fall of fish on this occasion was very conclusive. A specimen of the fish was exhibited and was found to be the I don't want to even want to try to pronounce that. It's a Gasterosteus larus. Yeah, that. It is the stickleback, it says. Although I think we have not a sense of total perdition when we're damned with the explanation that someone soused someone else with a pail full of water in which there were thousands of fishes 4 or 5 inches long, some of which were covered roofs of houses, and some of which remained 10 minutes in the air. By way of contrast, we offer our own acceptance. So the point is, it's like, okay, so some people would say, okay, well, maybe there was some kind of whirlwind, like there was a tornado, maybe there was some kind of hurricane, something, right? Maybe a water spout, which is a tornado over water. All right. So the the conventional explanation would be, well, there was some kind of water spout that pulled these fish out of this pond. These poor unsuspecting fish got got sucked out of this pond by this tornado, and then they were deposited, several miles away on this neighborhood. So this neighborhood, they've got fish raining from the sky, and it's unbelievable. Right. Well, that is an explanation because that does happen. But if you'll notice, in that particular case that I read, it was all one type of fish, the stickleback, whatever that is. So the stickleback fish, there were no other fish, there were no other plants or animals, frogs, nothing. It was just all fish, and they were all about 4 to 5 inches long. So, in other words, they were all about the same age, right? Maybe they were adults. I don't know. But they were all about the same age, which that's fascinating on it also, that it was all one type of fish, one breed, and they were all about the same size. And then it says that some seem to have hung in the air for 10 minutes, which would indicate a very long fall, or that they were carried for a very long distance. True. But this says they were just dropped in one area, meaning they weren't strewn over this huge amount of land. They were dropped in an area, small, whatever little area there. And it was one type of fish, all around about the same age, dropped in one little area. It's as if, and he says this, it's as if there was a pond of stickleback fish somewhere up in space. As crazy as it may sound, dear loved one, it's what it is. And that the bottom had fallen out of it and they just onto the earth. Now, as crazy as that may sound, it's like, well, that is an explanation. But I mean, that's just one story. I mean, that's what's so fascinating about this book is that like that people say that Charles Fort was the original paranormal the original paranormal investigator, right? Because he wrote the Book of the Damned in 1919. And it got some very fascinating stuff in it. For example, here's another one. Well, that's the one in Memphis. Actually, that was pretty good. Well, no, okay. Yes, this is a good one. Lizards said to have fallen on the sidewalks of Montreal, Canada, December 28th, 1857. That's pretty fascinating. And also in Scientific American, a correspondent writes from South Granville, New York, that during a heavy shower, July 3rd, 1860, he heard a peculiar sound at his feet and looking down saw a snake lying as if stunned by a fall. It then came to life, gray snake about a foot long. These data have any meaning or lack of meaning or degree of damnation, you please, but in a matter of the fall that occurred at Memphis, Tennessee, occur some strong significances. Our quasi reasoning upon this subject applies to all segregations so far considered. And in Memphis, Tennessee, January 15th, 1877, rather strictly localized or in a space of 2 blocks. And after a violent storm in which the rain fell in torrents, snakes were found. They were crawling on sidewalks, in yards, and in streets, and in masses, but none were found on roofs or any other elevation above ground, and none were seen to fall. So it's like, well, where did they come from? Did they just appear out of nowhere? That would appear as though that's what has happened. So the indication originally is, well, did they fall from the sky? Well, yeah, but maybe, but they didn't. They didn't land on roofs. The point I'm getting at with this, dear loved one, is things like this could not happen in a strictly physical world, in a material world. In a strictly material world, things like lizards raining from the sky, as ridiculous as that may sound, things like that cannot happen in a world that is strictly material. It has to be some kind of simulated. It has to be some kind of simulation. So now I'm not necessarily saying, dear loved one, it does not have to be a simulation in computer. I'm not saying it has to be some quantum computer simulated Although, as I've said many times, I'm not opposed to that. That's fine. We can go with the computer simulated world. That's fine. But it doesn't have to be a computer simulation. It can be simulation in mind, because as spiritual beings, or at least I do believe that even if there are computer simulations that are going on, they ultimately are going on in the mind of the universal consciousness, the source, the creator, God. So if we peel it all the way back, and some of those layers may be computer simulation, some of those layers may be a combination of some part of it's computer, part of it's in mind, part of it's this, part of it's that, part of it's whatever. But if we peel it all the way back to the very beginning, where we will get back to the original I am, we will get back to the original source of all of this. As the Kybalion tells us, that all exists in the mind of the all, right? The all being the mind, the original mind, the original I am. You see, I look at it as God, or the source, having an awakening. Just like when you have your spiritual awakening, when you come to that realization, when you come to and you're like, holy shit, I exist. I'm real. I'm breathing. I'm thinking. I'm imagining. I'm creating in my mind, in my imagination. I'm creating. When you have that awakening, that is your little mini I am moment. Now, obviously, our I am moment's not going to be nearly as big as that of the of the big cheese, the big creator. But the I am moment that the creator had is when it had that holy shit, I exist. Here I am. I am here. I'm having an awakening. I am thinking. I am mind. As I've said many times before, if you can strip away all of your five senses, you got your five senses. If you can strip away all your five senses, then if we can get rid of our sense of time, space, and distance, and then maybe position in space, right? But still, five senses plus time, space, distance, and position. If we can get rid of that, what are you left with? You're left with one thing by my calculation anyway, you're left with one thing. You're left with mind. You're left with your own personality, your own sense of self, your own I am. It's like, where are you? I don't know. Who are you? I don't know. When, where, how? I don't know. I just know that I am. That's what I know. I know that I am. I know that I'm thinking. I know that I'm creating through my imagination, and I want to explore this. What is this? Right? You can imagine how amazing that would have been, or is, I guess, for the source to have that awakening, to just come to and say, wow, I am. And it's like, what do you mean I am? Like, I don't know. I just know that I exist. That's all I know. And it's amazing. And I'm going to explore this. Now, splintering itself out into however many pieces it wants to go into is a lot. But when the great I am has the awakening and says I am, and then begins creating in its mind, it created. I mean, if you want to look at it from the Judeo-Christian thing, it created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so when it had that big awakening, it had its big aha moment, and it began splintering itself. See, you got to take that. That's why I said we have to take time out of the equation, because time is only something we use in this physical world. Outside of this, time has no use, has no meaning. And I even know that from personal experience, dear loved one, because as I've said before, I'm an addict in recovery. I have been sober now for a long time, but I did have a very bad overdose, and in that time, I had a experience where I was. Only thing I can say is I was in the quantum field. I was in what most people who are, I guess, out of body explorers or whatever, what they would say they were in the black. And that's very accurate of a way of describing it. But it's not just it's not just nothing, because at first I used to say, well, I was in the when people would ask me, how was that experience? I was like, well, I was in the void. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, but after I thought about it a little bit more, I'm like, no, it wasn't void at all. Because void, actually, there's no such thing as void. All right. But at that time, I was like, okay, so it was void. Well, no, it wasn't void, because void indicates a complete vacuum, like there is absolutely nothing there. And that is what it appears to be. That's what it looks like, because it is just the black. But what it really is, it's the quantum field. It's the quantum field. It's what they would call wave function, unmanifested energy. That's what it is. And it looks like void, but it's not. And that's where, if you want to really get into the, like, go back into the Gnostic texts and things like that, that's where Sophia projected her consciousness into the chaos, which would be that quantum field. But she projected her consciousness into that, and it was she created. That's the whole Gnostic story of creation, about how Sophia created the demiurge, and then the demiurge. Yeah, I'm not going to get into all that right now. I just realized my little tassel here. That's for my youngest when she graduated. So that's the 22. I know it's hard to believe, dear loved. I know it's hard to believe that I did not graduate high school in 22. Right? Yeah, I know you're probably thinking you probably did, Matt. Yeah, you look like you probably graduated in 22. Yeah, yeah, 1922. No, I'm kidding. Not that bad. Graduated in 1993, actually. But whatever. So, in that field, I realized it was quantum energy. It was wave function. What they call wave function is, it's like it is energy, quantum energy, that has just not been manifested yet. It is going to be manifested, but it just not has not been manifested yet. So when I was in that, one thing I realized is there was absolutely no sense of time. I mean, it literally could have been 10 seconds, it could have been 10 minutes, it could have been 10 million years. And when I say there was no concept of time, that's actually not really accurate either, because to say there was a concept of time would be meaning that at least time was time had no meaning there. It just, there was no meaning to the quantum field. So it's not even accurate to say that there was a no concept of time, because that's not even accurate. There was, that's not even accurate. So anyway, so when I say we got to take time out of the equation, because the source consciousness, the universal mind, operates at a time where it's just, there is only now, one big now. And we are at the front of that now, just as much as all of the entire creation, all of anything that's ever been created from the universal consciousness, from the source creator. It's in the eternal now. It's a front of the now, back of the now. There's only eternal right now, and that's all there is and ever will be. So it's like, is it 1 second long? No, it's not 1 second long. That's too long. It's less than a second long. But then again, it's longer than a second. It's not. Stop thinking in terms of time. It's just one long. It's just one big thing. Just one thing. So that's all it is. But anyway, getting back to what I was originally doing this on. This is kind of an impromptu live stream video. I've seen a few people pop in, kind of watch for a couple of seconds and pop back out. It's fine. It's cool. I do intend to begin doing these live streams more often, but on on a more schedule thing, so that way hopefully we can get some of the people who are more interested in these kinds of things. But um the only reason why I would do the live streams more so than than just doing pre-recorded videos is to get interactions, because I do get a lot of people interact after the fact, but it's like if we could do that during, that would be fantastic, you know. So getting back to Charles Fort's Book of the Damned, the reason why it's called Book of the Damned is because this is information, these are reports that would be considered paranormal, although I'm not a big paranormal guy, but I don't really care about paranormal stuff. I mean, it's fine, it's okay, but whatever. Um, it's just this is information that is damned because it's like, yeah, it doesn't fit the narratives. Nobody really wants to look at it because it doesn't fit their narratives. I mean, it's like forbidden archaeology and things like that. They don't like it because it's like, yeah, if we admit that these things happen, if we admit that fish fall from the sky and it's all the same breed and all about the same age and it's in a really tight little spot and there's nowhere for them to have come from, then we have to admit that this world is not quite what we think it is. That maybe, I mean, something like that would only be able to be programmed in. That's something that would have to be edited in. That's not something that could happen in a strictly material world. So, anyway, and then this but later part in this book, we go on to talk about it is argued that certain rounded stones that have been found in coal are fossil aerolites that they have had fallen from the sky ages ago when coal was soft because coal had closed around them. But anyway, as a lump of coal from a mine in Scotland, an iron instrument had been found. The interest attaching to this single relic arises from the fact of its having been found in the heart of a piece of coal, 7 feet under the surface. It's like, how are these things found? If we accept that this object of iron was of workmanship beyond the means and skill of the primitive men who may have lived in Scotland when the coal was forming there, the instrument was considered to be modern. That are expressed. So here we go again. None of these things can make sense in a physical, material world. All of these accounts, I mean, all the way from things like this about iron instruments being found in a lump of coal to fish raining from the sky to placebo effect to Mandela effects. All of these effects, all of these things cannot happen in a strictly material world. It has, and I'm not saying it has to be a computer program. Although, as I've said many times to your loved one, I'm not opposed to that. If it's a material world, or if it's a computer program, that's fine. It's fine. In fact, I am currently reading. What am I reading? The Simulation Hypothesis by Rizwan Burke, second edition. Second edition has a lot more stuff in it than the first edition, obviously, duh. But 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 yeah, I'm currently reading the Simulation Hypothesis. I haven't gotten into it enough, I guess, to really say much about it, other than the fact that he really likes video games. He definitely does. But like I said, I haven't gotten much into that yet. Jeez. So anyway, dear loved ones, I just wanted to do a quick little video because I do want to start doing some more live streams to get more interaction and all that good stuff. But yeah, I was reading in Charles Fort's Book of the Damned, and some of the things that happen in here, frogs raining from the sky, and I mean it's just a lot of stuff like that. These are things that just it's like, how did that happen? I mean, really, just how did that happen? I mean, you can just flip through here and just find things. It's just really cool. I'm gonna find you another one, and then I'm gonna jump off here. Maybe, just maybe. Hey, there's a guy on here. How you doing, dude? And there he goes. I don't know. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it on up there. Yes, loved ones. Working out the bugs with the live stream stuff. That way I can start putting some examples on the screen while we're talking about it, and that would be very good. And yeah, once I get that figured out, I'm looking at what softwares and stuff like that to use for this. So anyway, dear loved ones, that's what I got for you. I love you, I do, and I'll be back directly.